She wept with her face turned toward the fire, but only after she knew you had already left the room. You think it was weakness, an overflow, something uncontrolled. But no, it was placement, performance, precision. You only remember the tears because she made sure the flicker of the flame lit them just right. She knows how to appear defeated while planning your next defeat. And if you try to comfort her, you'll be disarmed. If you try to resist her, you'll be condemned. The real tragedy. You still think it's about feelings. You believed love was the battlefield, but no, it is the audience. The true war is silence, angles, the secret thrill of being underestimated. Her softness is her dagger, her confession, a form of blackmail, and you, the man who thought clarity was power, are now lost in a maze of sighs and unfinished sentences. If this whisper already knows, you let it echo. Like the video. Leave your shadow in the comments. Subscribe and stay near the silence. It is there the tactics begin. She appears vulnerable, but every confession is rehearsed power hides inside what seems powerless. You always thought you were witnessing her unraveling, but it wasn't unraveling, it was choreography. She knew the exact moment to pause, to let her voice tremble just slightly, to lower her eyes as if too ashamed to meet yours. But she was watching, not your eyes, your reaction, every blink, every stillness in your shoulders, every hesitation in your breath. She doesn't need facts. She memorizes the terrain of your sympathy. She can weaponize the smallest kindness. You thought you were peeling back layers, but you were being taught what to protect and how to lose it. She gives you fragments of truth, but always the kind you can't verify. She speaks in half sentences. I didn't mean for it to happen, and then silence. A silence that waits for your imagination to fill the void. She knows what you'll invent in that space. The tears are not meant to release her pain, they are meant to sharpen your guilt. She does not ask for forgiveness. She lets you offer it without request. And once you do, your moral footing is gone. You have admitted to something you never committed. And now she owns your need to make it right. You begin defending her to yourself. She's just been through a lot. She didn't mean it that way. She's scared. You think you're being empathetic, but you're being conditioned. Slowly, she rewrites the rules of conflict. It becomes cruel to question her, unkind to protect yourself, selfish to assert clarity. Every boundary becomes a weapon against you. If you withdraw, you're abandoning her. If you confront her, you're attacking someone who's already broken. So you stay in the grey, the moral fog. And there in that murky space, she governs. There was a night you remember clearly. She sat on the edge of the bed, legs folded beneath her, hoodie sleeves hiding her hands. Her voice trembled when she asked you if you still wanted her, but her eyes didn't match. They held no fear, only stillness, calculation. You didn't see it then. You only felt your stomach twist, your lungs tighten, the need to reassure her. Of course I do, you said too quickly. She didn't smile, she just nodded and looked away, like she had already predicted your words. She wasn't testing your love, she was confirming your obedience. And the most Machiavellian part of all, she does not think of this as manipulation. In her world, it is necessity. The performance of vulnerability is how power survives in a world that would punish her for showing too much of it outright. She has learned that softness is currency, and you, the man who believes in honesty, in directness, in reason, are the perfect mark. You're not cruel, you're not calculating, and that's why you'll fall, not in one dramatic gesture, but in slow concessions. You will compromise your instincts, excuse red flags, Hand her the keys to your self-doubt, one moment at a time. She remembers every detail you forget. That one offhand comment you made about your mother's disapproval, the way you react to silence, how you shift uncomfortably when you feel misunderstood. She stores these things not as sentimental trivia, but as tools. She will use them months later not to hurt you outright, but to draw you back when you try to walk away. You never liked silence. She'll whisper when you try to hang up, just like with your mom. Suddenly, the argument isn't about her deception, it's about your wounds. She becomes your mirror not to reflect you, but to disorient you, and you'll find yourself apologizing. Again, not for what you did, but for how you made her feel. You'll replay every interaction, wondering where you failed, how you could have explained yourself better, responded faster, softened your tone. You will rewrite reality because she has convinced you that your truth is violence, and her performance is survival. This is not love, this is theater, and you are both audience and actor, caught between clapping and pleading for intermission. But there is no intermission. There is only the next act. The act where she pulls away slowly, quietly, just enough for you to notice. She'll grow distant, not cold, mysterious, not cruel. She wants you to feel it, to lean forward, to ask, is something wrong? She wants you to chase, and when you do, she wins. Because the moment you pursue, the dynamic shifts. You are no longer the observer. You are the one seeking reassurance. And she, the one who once wept at your feet, now grants you tiny tokens of warmth, just enough to keep you near. You begin to crave those tokens, her laugh when you least expect it, the softness in her voice when she calls you by name, the nights she suddenly needs you, sobbing without explanation, folding into your chest like you're her only shelter. But always, always, it is conditional. Your comfort becomes her leash. And every time she breaks, you come closer, believing love is in the healing. But Machiavelli would whisper otherwise. He would tell you the one who defines the meaning of pain controls the loyalty of the one who relieves it. This is not cruelty. This is strategy. She does not destroy you through attack. She erodes you through worship. She lets you feel like a savior even as you drown in ambiguity. You become her fixer, her compass, her moral translator. And yet, no matter how much you give, you never arrive at resolution, because resolution ends the performance, and her power thrives only in performance. If she were ever truly satisfied, she would lose control. So satisfaction must always be just out of reach, close enough to see, too far to hold. And here's the most terrifying part: you think you are unique. You think her tears are only for you, that no one else has touched this place inside her. But if you saw her with another, you'd hear the same trembling voice, see the same curtain drawn across the same mirror. The script does not change, only the actor in front of her does. And if that truth repulses you, good. That means you still have something left that she hasn't rewritten. But do you, or are you already reciting her lines, believing them your own? Her beauty does not seduce. It weakens your guard. The wound is made before you feel it. You didn't fall for her because she was kind. You fell because something in her beauty made you forget to protect yourself. You mistook attraction for trust, softness for safety. The way her lips curved when she was silent, it was enough to make you speak first. Reveal too much. Lower your defenses without realizing you had any. She never asked for your secrets. You gave them willingly because her presence didn't feel dangerous. But the serpent wears no crown. The knife is often warm to the touch. She doesn't use words when her eyes can do the damage. When she looks at you with just enough softness, just enough vulnerability, you become the one to lean in, to fill the silence, to prove you're not like the others. You mistake her fragility for goodness, but it's not goodness. It's a spell, a biological illusion. You think you're moving toward her, but you're already bleeding, and you'll only notice the cut when you try to walk away. She does not fight you directly. She makes you hesitate. That's all she needs. A single moment of self-doubt. A moment where you ask yourself, what if she's right? What if I'm too harsh? What if I'm the one who's broken? That moment is her entry point. The wound is not always visible. It is psychological, invisible, but it alters your choices. You begin to adjust your tone, soften your truths, avoid subjects you once had no shame discussing. You adapt not to protect her, but to avoid losing access to her beauty. And there it is, the thorn, not physical, existential. You fear her absence more than her betrayal. You crave her approval even when you no longer believe her. Her presence becomes a narcotic one that numbs your sense of danger. Her laughter disarms, her silence haunts, and worst of all, her pain makes you feel chosen. As if being the one she cries to makes you special, as if her sadness is a door she only opens for you. But Machiavelli would whisper she opens it to whoever is most useful. Emotion is not intimacy, it is currency, and you are paying full price. One night, she cries about another man. You feel a strange rush jealousy, yes, but also pride. She came to you, you feel needed, and yet, part of you wonders, why is she telling me this? Not because she wants healing, but because she wants power. You will now fight that man in your mind. Imagine him. Compare yourself to him. Try harder to be better than him. She didn't need to ask. She planted the war in your heart. And now, every moment with her becomes a campaign for superiority. She doesn't have to lift a finger. You will destroy yourself to win a game she never confirmed existed. You begin offering things she never asked for. Apologies, compromises, plans. You cancel time with your friends. You explain yourself in paragraphs. You check her tone for signs of withdrawal. You initiate affection not because you feel it, but because you're afraid of her turning cold. You praise her, reassure her, beg her to see your side. But beauty, in her hands, is not soft. It is leverage. And you are no longer yourself, you are an actor, performing the version of you she rewards with warmth. And when she's done with you, she doesn't need to explain. She simply changes temperature, withdraws the light. You scramble, try to fix, try to understand. But there's no answer, only absence. Her beauty now becomes absence. Her warmth becomes memory. And you are left circling the ghost of her affection. What did I do wrong? When did I lose her? But the game was never about you. You were only the mirror she used to study her own power. Still you chase. You tell yourself it's love, but Machiavelli would laugh. He would call it subjugation. He would say never allow a woman to see her power over you, lest she despise you for giving it freely. And that is the final twist. She no longer wants you once she knows she has you. Because what thrilled her was not your heart. It was your resistance, your hesitation, your spine. Once that is gone, so is her interest. She wanted your fire, not your ashes. And the worst humiliation, you will still miss her, long after she's gone. Not because she made you feel loved, but because she made you feel like the center of her suffering. And that illusion is stronger than any love. She gave you a role, not a relationship. And now that the curtain has fallen, you are left addicted to a version of her that never existed outside your need. But you still scroll her photos, you still reread the messages, you still wonder what if. Because her beauty bypassed logic, it infected memory. You don't remember what she did, only how she made you feel. That is the mark of a true manipulator. She rewrites your perception of harm. You start to blame yourself. You forget the thorn. You remember only the rose. You tell your friends she was complicated, that she had a hard past, that maybe you rushed her. You find dignity in taking the blame. But Machiavelli would whisper again, you were not protecting her. You were avoiding the shame of being deceived. You wanted the illusion to remain, because truth would make you feel like a fool, and fools would rather bleed than see the knife. She never raised her voice, never struck, never screamed, and that is why it worked. You were not prepared for beauty that harms. You were not taught that the most dangerous people do not look dangerous. You were warned about wolves, but never roses. And now you guard yourself from love, but not from danger. You avoid truth-tellers, but remain open to charm. You've learned the wrong lesson. You think cold women are safe, that emotion is weakness, that care is camouflage. But the true scar remains untouched, your inability to trust your instincts once they failed you. And in this way, she still wins. She doesn't need to speak to control the room. Her absence creates more chaos than her presence ever could. You think you miss her voice, but it's not her voice you ache for, it's the shape her silence carved into you. When she stopped answering, you didn't hear quiet. You heard punishment. The pause became a sentence. The gap between her replies became a mirror you couldn't look away from. You refreshed your messages, checked your calls, searched for a flaw in your last words. But she said nothing, and so you began speaking to yourself, over and over, apologizing to a ghost, explaining to air. She understood what most never do, that the deepest power is exercised not in action, but in withdrawal. She didn't slam doors, she vanished from them. She didn't argue, she exiled. Her power wasn't in the storm, it was in the drought. She didn't need to yell, she let you spiral into the echo of your own thoughts. And you did. You always do. Because she made you believe her silence was your fault. You told yourself she needed space, that she was overwhelmed, that maybe you pushed too hard. But every rationalization you offered was a stone you placed at the base of her throne, and she watched unseen as you built it higher. The longer she said nothing, the more control she gained. Because silence demands interpretation, and you, the man who seeks order, became the architect of your own undoing. You filled her absence with stories, motives, regrets. You gave her more attention when she disappeared than when she was right in front of you. That's the mastery of her silence. It didn't repel you, it consumed you. And Machiavelli would whisper, he who can provoke guilt without a word has no need of armies. She made herself the judge, the jury, the unseen monarch whose very vanishing dictated your behavior. She turned away, and you began to perform, nicer, softer, quieter. You reached out not because you believed you were wrong, but because her lack of response made you feel worthless. And so you begged, but not loudly, not desperately. No, you begged in subtle ways. You wrote long, thoughtful messages. You posted carefully curated photos. You hinted, you waited, you hoped. And when she finally did speak hours later, days later, it was never a resolution. It was a breadcrumb, a sentence without emotion, a simple hey that cracked your armor wide open. You flooded with relief. You didn't even care what she meant. You just needed her to speak, and in that moment, she knew you had surrendered. Your silence now belonged to her. She could withhold attention, warmth, closure, and you would chase it like a starving dog chasing smoke. Her silence wasn't just absence, it was script. She could write entire narratives through what she didn't say. You criticized her, she went cold. You asked a hard question, she didn't feel like talking. You tried to end things, she vanished, only to return when the tension had collapsed. Every vanishing was strategic, and every return was timed for maximum effect. She didn't need a confrontation, she only needed time for your certainty to rot. This is not mystery. This is manipulation. But you called it distance. You romanticized it. You imagined a storm in her soul. Imagined that her silence was some noble suffering you hadn't yet earned the right to witness. You mistook her coldness for depth. You forgot that power wears many masks, and some of them are heartbreakingly beautiful. She understood this instinct in you, the need to make sense of pain, so she gave you just enough to keep you hoping. A reply after 3 days, a like on your post, a vague compliment in a moment of weakness. You clung to these like relics. You mistook them for reconciliation, but they weren't peace offerings. They were reignitions. She didn't want closure. She wanted tension, not open war, not harmony, just the subtle ache of confusion, because that is the most loyal form of control. You never quite knew where you stood. That was the point. When someone keeps you in a state of almost seen, almost loved, almost understood, you become addicted to the next moment. You think the next time she texts, it will all make sense. But it never does. Her attention is an unpredictable sun, and you are left guessing the weather, dressing for a season that never comes. The silence becomes contagious. You stop expressing, you censor yourself, you walk on eggshells, not because she asked you to, but because she taught you what withdrawal feels like. You begin shaping your words, your tone, your thoughts to avoid her disappearance. You become a servant to an absence, a disciple of her retreat. She has taught you the high cost of honesty, and now you avoid paying it. You watch her do it with others. Maybe not directly, but it's there. That delayed reply, that vague message, that sudden cold shoulder she gives to someone who once made her laugh. You see her using it, but when it's turned on you, it feels personal. She's hurt. She just needs time. No, she just knows how power works. And silence. Silence is the purest form of it. And when you finally confront her, ask for answers, for clarity, for truth, she doesn't react with apology. She reacts with injury. Why are you accusing me? Why are you making me feel guilty for needing space? Suddenly, you are the abuser. You are the one who couldn't handle her needs. You walk away feeling like the villain, like your longing for honesty was cruelty. That is her genius. You ask for light and she turns your hunger into blame. Even when she leaves, fully leaves, she doesn't say goodbye. She just fades. No fight, no closure. You're left haunted by the sound of nothing. And that silence, like a throne with no king, remains in your mind long after her image has blurred. You still wonder what you could have said differently, but Machiavelli would remind you a master manipulator never fears being understood. She fears losing the power to be misinterpreted, and that is why you still wait. You wait for a ghost to speak. You wait for the silence to break. You wait for something that will never come because it has already done its work. You don't need her presence anymore. Her silence now lives inside you. You carry it into new relationships, new conversations, new arguments. Every time someone goes quiet, you flinch. Every pause feels like punishment. Every delayed reply feels like rejection. She has trained your nervous system. You are her echo, and the final cruelty no one else will notice. They will call you paranoid, overreactive. They will not see the throne she built inside you, because it is invisible. It is built from everything she never said. So you sit before it, still, and somewhere she smiles not because she broke you, but because you still don't realize you were conquered. There is a room in your memory with no door, no windows, No voice, only a chair facing the wall and a clock that never ticks. You sit in it sometimes without knowing, when the message doesn't come, when the silence lingers just a little too long, when someone walks away without a reason and your lungs forget how to breathe. This is not where you lost her. This is where she still waits, not as a woman, not as a name, but as the throne you built out of pauses, the crown you forged from her absence, the kingdom you rule from your own confusion, and the question that remains, pulsing behind your ribs like a second heartbeat. If she speaks again, would you finally hear her, or would you kneel again to her silence